Hi, friends. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the necessity of self compassion and how I've been understanding self compassion to be and how it fits into my life compared to, how I thought of it in the past. So, in this, in this time of my life, self compassion to me is very much so about that underlying attitude that helps me figure out what is the right way forward, what is the right course of direction to take, what is the right action to take in every moment whenever I see in my mind like a choice that I have, right? Because it's really interesting how these compulsions, these behavior compulsions I have for who I think I'm expected to be, for what maybe my needs used to be in the past, for the persona I kind of feel pressured to perform out of survival, out of the survival memories from the past. It puts a lot of pressure on us to perform things in the same way, to make those same decisions. And for me, self-compassion helps me remember, oh, if I notice that I'm using any kind of shame or guilt or sense of obligation, that to me is kind of like, wait, something's off here, and I have to go with my gut. Whether or not like the logical option looks like for me to, you know, perform some kind of behavior that I think is going to give me the advantageous outcome that I want or that I need in order to survive or be valid or have hope or whatever all my fears are telling me, Sometimes not doing that compulsion, that thing I feel obligated to do, is actually what will allow me to weave that sustainable path forward, that path forward that works for me, that path forward where, we can actually base relationships on testing each other, being really transparent, being really honest in how we think and feel. And just honest with ourselves about our energy level and what motivates us, so we don't have to be exhausting ourselves trying to force ourselves to stay motivated or, and it's really interesting. Like, I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who, I always have in my mind, maybe one day I'll be in a different state of mind and I'll be capable of learning some like hard technical skill, and I'll just like get a regular job at a regular kind of place, but a place that is still really caring of me as an individual, that has is appropriate for a person with my kind of disabilities and needs and limitations and all of that. But that aside, from me acknowledging maybe that can happen in the future, that aside, like, what I'm trying to excavate in the present is understanding my creative spirit, like that essence of who I am as a person who honestly is privileged at this time of my life to have a lot of freedom of self-expression, a lot of really supportive scenarios that I had to make a lot of sacrifices and go through a lot of confusion in order to get to. But now that I'm here, I'm like, okay, how can I try to follow that sense of creative expression and getting to know myself on a more human level. Like, became depersonalized in my own mind and my own sense of self because of survival. So now I'm trying to personalize myself again and be like, okay, what's it like when I actually feel safe to feel my thoughts and feelings, to express my thoughts and feelings? And I'm not constantly doing so much manipulation of myself to try to perform in order to have some kind of ideal outcome. And I mean, I am doing that sometimes, like when I am away from home, you know, between 1 and 3 weeks a month. It varies from month to month. I'm gone doing house sits with dogs at other people's houses. And those are periods that I, you know, have this sense of forcing myself to do something because I want to earn the money, and it's really hard for me to be away from home. But in the meantime, when, like right now, when I am based from home, it does feel very open and free, and I have gratitude for these glimpses that I still get to go into and to replenish within, and hopefully to remember aspects of myself, being true to myself, finding methods of support that are actually accessible to me emotionally, and then going back into these house sits with that that sense of replenishment and like a fortification, or like what's the word, not prevention, precautions, preparation, that sense of preparation for the really hard times when I am alone at these houses. It's just me. I have this underlying anxiety because I am just at someone else's house. It feels like I am highly responsible 24/7. I'm never off because I have to make sure the dog is okay and that I'm okay, and that I'm kind of always anticipating, like, I'm literally in somebody else's home. Like, it's a huge responsibility, and is somebody going to, like, can I trust if someone's gonna, like, I haven't had any bad interactions with clients so far because I think I'm pretty good at sorting, with interviews and sorting out beforehand to see who's compatible. But you never know in the future, and I'm just kind of always anticipating that. So yeah, it is a lot of pressure being at these house sits, and I tend to just I'm trying to use this time when I am home to be like, okay, how can I just have this general sense like I deserve being alive, like I am valid and beautiful as a human individual. I deserve to go outside and feel safe and not feel like I'm obligated to hate or harm myself if anybody shows displeasure with however I am being. I deserve to go outside and feel safe so that I can just enjoy the sunshine and the birds and all the green things. I deserve to, eat like good, nourishing food every day. I deserve to feel safe in my body, like I can stretch and move and it feels good. It doesn't feel like I am moving my body with this pressure to mold it into looking or performing a certain way. But I'm just moving it because I'm a human and that's what I do. And it feels like good in my physical body to do some movements, and so I do that. I feel I deserve to not take on so much responsibilities and pressures, and to preserve my desire to heal and find that real place of safety, continue going towards that to help restore me after all the trauma from the past. And the burnout, and just trying to understand my new direction in life as I go into the future. Trying to understand what even is my way of relating to people, staying in contact, what I talk about with people, how I test people, like all these patterns that are different from the past, and how I would form and maintain friendships and bonds. But it's oriented completely different now because my values are totally different, my resources are completely different, my limitations are completely different. So it's a lot to be doing, and I guess today I'm just trying to remind myself, like, all these things, this sense of who am I and what am I doing, this sense of identity, this sense of, that drives my executive functioning, it all relies on compassion towards myself and, great self-acceptance, great love towards myself, great respect. And to some people it might seem silly, but if you if you have been in like extreme self-hating, self-erasing, self-deprecating, self-sacrificing kind of patterns, and maybe you haven't even realized it, but I mean, that's what happens when you become burnout. That's literally what is happening. Like, you aren't considering yourself, who you actually are, what you actually need enough, and so the result is becoming burnout. You're trying to perform that you're somebody else. When you've been in that mode, you see yourself through such an extreme lens. You do really have to do the opposite, I believe, in learning how to really access that feeling of love and what that even looks like, and have a new view in relationship with yourself. And that is the way that other relationships, I think, can feel really safe and rewarding and mutually, beneficial and beautiful and lovely. So yeah, I'm kind of talking about this on one hand, hoping to connect with people, hoping it helps somebody, and also because it is helping me to remember, like, what am I even doing at this time of my life, when it's so easy for me to be in all my fears or be in all my oh, there's an ant in my car. But when I am just doing everyday life, and when I am doing these transitions of, it literally feels like two separate worlds. When I'm out the house sits, and then when I come back home and I'm trying to make this transition, like yesterday I was having bad anxiety seemingly for no reason, and I just laid down and meditated and took a nap. Today I slept for extra long, and I don't put pressure on myself, but I would like to try to figure out, how do I go from, just over time, I hope I can have access to more resources, more accessible, mutually beneficial resources, and techniques, habits, hobbies, reading, just reading more, being comfortable reading all day and in my imagination, and playing bass, learning bass, and seeing as a part of my family that I'm meeting this instrument, getting to know it, letting it get to know me, and it's intimacy with this object kind of thing, more so than trying to perform a piece of music, technically, that kind of thing. But as these techniques, trying to talk with people online, as I continue trying to have access to different resources and hobbies that are it keeps my focuses more simple, um, more like simple and like a concrete sense of identity. I'm hoping over time I will have less like really harsh times at house sits that I have to recover from, because typically at house sits now I, just feel really alone, afraid, unhappy, but in the past I would really anguish about it, and now I just like, I have movies on 24/7, I'm on my phone the whole time playing phone games while listening to stuff, while having the TV going, just like hyper stimulation to try to keep all my anxious energy distracted, to keep myself numb. And you know that is it's not ideal, but it's a process for me to figure out replacements that feel natural, and it doesn't feel like I'm just forcing myself out of obligation or shame or threat to myself. And it's self-direction is hard when you have come from a background of using like abusing yourself in order to motivate or achieve anything, um, and sometimes even if you weren't using abuse, you could still be trying to have yourself do something that isn't quite the right approach, or it just doesn't feel right. It's not abusive, but it still doesn't feel right. It feels like something made for somebody else that you're just trying to awkwardly fit into. So I'm really interested in learning what are those ways that feel really right for me. Those ways of that feels like, this like beautiful language that I have with myself. These beautiful inner reference points and like feelings. Not feelings like human emotions like happy, sad, angry, confused, but like literal like feelings, like sensations of the mind, and like half memories where you're reminded of things, or you feel like a texture in your mind, or you feel like like I have a lot of that, and that can be hard to interpret or to harness or to know what to do with. These kind of more vague sensations or inklings that are in your mental emotional realm, but it's not like fully realized. It's not in a concrete way. And I think that's a part of what creative expression, as I hope I continue figuring out ways to the rollerblader reminds me of Iron Man. He has like all this red and black um padding on. Sorry, I got distracted, but anyway, that's just where I am today, and trying to continue figuring out what is my creative expression with writing. And hopefully I get back to more fiction writing if I can find that mental place to do so, that emotional place to do so. And it's really interesting being a human being and trying to navigate, trying to protect, trying to hope, trying to get through things after a lot of crazy life experiences. But it is worth it to me, because if it wasn't worth it, then life would just be a torture zone, and there wouldn't be any point of being alive. But I go forward every day with the hope and belief that things can continue to get better, and I can continue through self-compassion, self-acceptance, self-love, continue increasing the likelihood for myself that I'll be in healthy, safe environments, have access to the resources that are compatible for me and my needs. And yeah. Anyway, if you, I don't know, if you listen to this and you feel connected to it, please feel free to write something. If you have, any kind of art that you've made, or writing, or a video, or anything that has to do with, self-compassion, dignity after burnout, these types of topics, please feel free to include it, or, to do something to help people, help myself find it. And yeah, take care, and best wishes to us all who are, we have a huge task, and we are approaching it the very best we can, even if it might seem in moments that we are, floundering. Like, we are really still on that path of understanding our needs and access points and abilities and limitations, understanding ourselves more clearly so that we can have more agency over the quality of life we experience, and we can, feel some sense that everything, all of this, is meaningful and controllable in a way that doesn't rely on harm in order to control and manage and change. All right, take care. Bye.